This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Coffee-fueled stories. Hello. It's me, Coffee Fitness Unicorn, your pocket DJ. And you're listening to Coffee Chats Podcast, a show where storytelling and coffee hang out. This week's special guest is Eileen Budd, Scottish author, artist, and storyteller. The perfect person to bring February fables to life. Hello and welcome to the show, Eileen.
Hello. Oh, it's so lovely to meet you in person.
This is so cool. I know, because we've been following each other on Instagram, and that's how I came across your account. And then we just started talking, and I was like, this woman is absolutely fabulous because you are an amazing storyteller. And your book that just came out. So why don't you tell the listeners a wee bit about yourself and about your book?
My name is Eileen Budd. I've been working in museums for about 20 years. I grew up in a family with a very strong tradition of maintaining Scottish folk traditions and oral traditions. And so I grew up with a lot of stories, lots and lots of stories. And they mean a huge amount to me. It's very important to me, sharing these stories. And when I got an opportunity to, well, with lockdown, I suppose, got an opportunity to write down, as many stories as I could possibly remember, I decided to choose the poems of Ossian because it was something that had inspired me when I was really young, growing up in Perthshire. These stories about 3rd century Scottish warriors fighting the Romans, fighting Vikings, Scandinavians. It was so relevant to me because of the landscape that I grew up in, these huge big rolling hills, and I could imagine all the warriors fighting there. I could see the action playing out, and I found it really inspiring. And I learned about there's all sorts of controversy around it at the time. The original book, the original translation of the poems came out in the 18th century, and there was a big, furore about it because at the time, the Jacobites had just not very long since been crushed. It was very anti-Scottish feeling from down south, so there was a cultural revolution happening, and the poems of Ossian was very much at the centre of it. And so during lockdown, I decided that I wanted to retell these stories in my own way, make sure that they were illustrated, make sure to include maps, really explain what the story is about and where they were, because so many people haven't even heard of them, and part of the reason for that is because, of this kind of like squashing of that part of our culture and our heritage, and I just felt that it wasn't right, and so I put 2 years into trying to bring that back to life again. So.
Very cool. That just answered a couple of questions. So I literally have in my notes here, Ossian, how long did it take to research it? And then why? So you literally answered the first 2 questions that I was going to ask. So that's totally awesome. So now you know this, but the listeners don't. I had a bit of a tragedy with your book, and we've already discussed it. So I unfortunately don't have the book in my presence, but it is coming. So I am looking so forward to actually having the tangible in my hands so that I can see those maps and see those illustrations. What I've done is I've decided to ask you questions. I've done a whole bunch of research on you. And so what I wanted to ask you, the reason that I actually was drawn to you and your book was the triskele or the triskelion design. Could you give us a little bit of history about that? Like, why did you choose that as for the cover? Like, what is the purpose and reasoning for that, or did you just like it?
I mean, it's a powerful symbol. It's been used for, centuries. You find it on Pictish sculpture stones. And round here, we have quite a few. Just down the road from us, there's a place called Aberlemno, which is very famous for the sculptured Pictish stones. And one of the symbols on that was that triskelion, although it's used prolifically throughout Scotland too. But that was something that really kind of like, we wanted something that really said not just, Scotland, or not just, it didn't really quite something that was Celtic. We wanted something that was, that you look at and you go, it's old, right? It's an ancient thing. It's a symbolic thing. And a triskel is that. It's really powerful. And so we chose that, and also Ogham. If you see on the cover of the book, there's a bit of Ogham.
Yes.
Yeah. Because the people in the book, they're Picts, they're Scots, they're Irish, they're Filbal, they're ancient races, So we wanted to kind of combine, get a different ideas of, what ancient Scottish culture might look like to a graphic designer in the 3rd century. So that was the idea behind that. And then, we wanted like a very dark stone behind it, almost as if that this was kind of carved into the stone. Because there's all sorts of different ideas about why and what the symbols are in the stones and what they meant. So it's kind of our obelisk.
I saw it on your page and I literally was like instantly drawn to it. I was like, what is that and how do I get it? And then we started messaging because I have the triskel from Newgrange tattooed. And same thing, it's a 5,000-year-old, like I had no idea it predated Egyptians by 1,000 years. Like when I went to the curbstone where the carving is, I literally, like I touched it and I was just like, holy crap, the history that this stone has seen. And so when I saw your book, it had that same pull, that same draw. And I was like, I have to talk with her. The listeners need to know who she is and they need to hear her stories. So this is so cool. So I can't thank you enough. It's very powerful. These symbols are so powerful. They're so historic. And so that leads into the next question that I have for you. So the Scots have a long tradition of storytelling using lyrical language. So Gaelic would be one of them. Do you speak Gaelic by chance?
Gaelic.
Okay, sorry.
It's Gaelic in Ireland and it's Gaelic in Scotland. Because the two, although they have the same root language, they kind of split around about kind of medieval time. And Scottish Gaelic went its own way, and yeah. So
I had no idea, so I apologize. I did not mean to insult.
No, it's just it's just to let you know.
I appreciate it.
I speak a little bit. Yeah, I speak a little bit. I've been teaching my son the bits that I know as well. I'm not fluent. I would really love to be. So it's something I've been keeping at since I was in high school. It's an amazing language. I think if you're interested in Scottish history, you really have to, and if you're interested in the landscape, you have to pick up a bit of Gaelic, because the language is all through our landscape, and some of the hills that have got Gaelic names, they relate to stories, So it's the same with the Scots language as well, which is its own thing. So a wee bit.
Very, very cool. I have a surprise for you. This is a surprise. Gaelic recorded a lovely gentleman I met yesterday, and I overheard, and so I was trying not to be rude, but he's from Scotland, and so I got really, really, really excited, and so I was like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm going to be speaking with a really cool Scottish author tomorrow. By chance, do you have anything that I can surprise her with? And he said, absolutely. And so I'm going to play a recording for you from, his name is James. also Seamus and Hamish. This is what he says, and this is the very first Gaelic that I've ever heard. And I apologize, the recording is a bit noisy.
Agil Akamorst. Agil Akamorst.
Can you hear it? Is it too? One more time. I'll turn it up a little bit more.
Agil Akamorst.
It's supposed to be I love you.
Oh, I thought it says, don't even know you.
I thought that was very sweet. I was like, well, all right.
Okay. I could tell you a little bit. So in Scottish tradition and Gaelic tradition, there's all the birds have different kind of songs, and they have different rhymes, like in Gaelic, to learn the bird songs and things. So this one is the thrush, and it goes Ikeri, Ikeri, koteku, koteku, kotinye, kotinye, jetine, jetine. Alan Kora customers, muklish, muklish, biklish, biklish.
Oh, that is so cool. Like, seriously, I want to come over to your house and I want to drink a bunch of coffee and I want you to teach me Gaelic. This is so cool. Oh my gosh. Thank you. And I was actually going to ask you if you would be so inclined as to maybe do, I don't know if you feel like doing a walking song or any mouth music. If it's totally okay. You don't feel comfortable doing that. But I loved your walking song, the video that you did.
Thank you.
And then if you don't want to do that, would you be inclined to do a very brief reading for us from Ossian? Okay.
Brakanan tananan brakanan suwen brakanan tananan brakanan suwen brakanan tananan brakanan suwen brakanan shitananan shi brakanan suwen tanan 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 brakanan suwen tanan 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 brakanan suwen tanan 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 suwen brakanan shitananan shi brakanan suwen.
Ah, that's brilliant. There's just something so magical about the songs and the language and the lilting and the sounds. Like, seriously, I instantly just get transported. I'm like, I'm on an island. There's a whole lot of rocks. There's a cool breeze blowing on my face and a little bit of salt in the air. I'm right there with you.
Oh, that's so nice. And I could do a reading if you like. Or
Sure.
I could tell you a story. Up to you.
It's whatever you're feeling. I still have silly questions, lots. I don't want to say silly Scottish questions, but let's do the questions after the reading, please.
Okie dokie. Okay. So this is from one of the poems, and it's about the sun. He's doing an ode to the sun. O sun, you who rose above, round as the shield of my fathers, from where do your beams come in your everlasting light? You come forth in your awful beauty. The stars hide themselves in the sky. The moon, cold and pale, sinks in the western wave. Yet you move alone, for who could be a companion of your course? The oaks of the mountains fall, the mountains themselves decay with years. The ocean shrinks and grows again. The moon herself is lost in heaven, but you are forever the same, rejoicing in the brightness of your path.
Have you noticed how Coffee Fueled Stories doesn't have any ads? That's because I work tirelessly to keep this show alive. After 3 years on my own, I've decided I need to ask for your help. I've never asked anyone to subscribe. I've never asked anyone to leave a review. I've never asked anyone to rate the show. And I've never asked anyone to pay to listen. There are a few ways you can help support the show. I've created a Patreon page, Coffee Fueled Stories, and a subscription section on my podcast website. It's simple to support and help me keep my dream alive. Just click the link in the show notes to set up your paid subscription option. It's that easy. Thank you for your support. Oh, that was lovely. Thank you so much. I could listen to you tell stories all day, and I think I've watched like every one of your YouTubes, which we'll get to. So I'm gonna ask you a bunch of silly Scottish questions, if that's okay. Okay. I ask them not because I'm wanting to be offensive or rude or anything like that. I two different high schools, and randomly each high school was represented with tartan. So we had tartan colors. So one I was a Highlander and one I was an Uplander. How crazy is that? And so we had a guy playing bagpipes and with his green tartan, his uniform, and then I had the Scotty dog was our mascot, and then we had, like I said, there's this weird, crazy connection I have to Scotland, and I just love the history and I love the story. And so I think everything kind of started like in high school. You start learning these things and you start like diving deeper into the history. And so my question to you is, does your family have a tartan or a clan color?
So the idea of like each family having their own tartan or clan is relatively modern. It's more likely that historically you would have tartans of certain colours from certain areas, depending on the natural dyes that were available. We do have we have a mixture of clans in my family. We have Stuarts and we have the Grahams, but we also have the Macintoshes. So I think we could have a choice. Generally, we go with the hunting Graham one, because it's a nice kind of, it's quite dark green and it's quite, it's very wearable. Whereas the Stuart is very red. It's really, really bright. Because, contrary to maybe what some people might believe, Scottish people all throughout history really love to wear bright colours. I mean, if you can imagine, people walking around the Highlands with quite bold, bright, all tartan, like all plaid, that's it's a bold statement. It's a, it's a risky fashion. That's that's my family tartans.
Very cool. You mentioned that, what were the things that you just, I'm going to slaughter the name. It was the really horrible thing that the spikes that you just did the video on it, and it's beautiful and horrible that you had the artists redesign it, but it's a tool of warfare.
Oh, a caltrop.
Yeah.
Caltrop, yes. That's quite a thing, yeah.
Yeah. So have you found any artifacts, whether it be the caltrop or the coin of Keros, anything like that in your yard? Have you gone searching for artifacts, or have you just randomly found anything in your yard?
Oh, I would absolutely love to find artifacts. You find pottery quite a lot in the garden. The one thing I found, which I thought was very cool, is a rock, and it's got lots of little holes in it, and in the holes are these little freshwater clams, or the shells of them, called piddocks. Now there's a stone in Scottish folk tradition, and it's called like a hagstone or a marestane, we would call them in Scotland. And it's a stone that's got a natural hole in it, and you would hang it up over your bed or over the briar for your cows and that, and it would ward off nightmares, nightmare stain, or it would ward off, the hag, this like idea of a hag that would take your horses out and ride them ragged all around the place so they were exhausted in the morning. And these stones were thought to be all kinds of magical things to do with them. They're really interesting, and they just have a natural hole in the middle. And I found this rock. I was out for a walk and I found this rock, and it was full of these holes. I went all the way through the rock, and in some of the holes were these tiny little piddock clams, which I thought was brilliant, because there you are. We're on our like folk tradition side, we're thinking about the magic of these stones and what they mean to us and stuff. And all the while, some of them have been, that hole was made just by a little clam, just trying to make a house. And I thought that was amazing. It's such a good teaching tool, when I'm going around the schools and stuff, like, because you get rattles as well because of the wee shells in it. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the coolest things I've found a rock.
No, that's so cool that you say that. So we were just at the beach maybe a couple weeks ago, and I normally don't pick up rocks. That's Brandy's thing. She loves to pick up rocks. But this one caught my eye, and it's because it has a hole in it. It had a hole at the top, and I was like, "Oh, this is a perfect necklace or something." And it's so I know, because I was wondering, how did that hole get there?
Yeah. Well, it could either be like a wee rock and it got caught in the water, it could grind away. But a lot of the time they've been made by a little piddock, a little clam.
That is so cool.
You're just lucky. Well done. Found that.
I'm like, that's a really cool story for my rock. I like it. I love
if it's
it.
Could be an adder stone. They're particularly.
I'll send you pictures. I'll see if I can find like some history about this particular area, like what rocks are in this area. But I just found it really interesting. It kind of had like a couple of divots and then had a hole. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and keep this one. And so we found some really cool shells, and we hadn't gone beachcombing in like maybe 4 years. So it was really cool to go beachcombing and to find this like I said, this rock with a hole in it. How fortuitous. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about, because you are a storyteller and you are an amazing storyteller, what is or was your favorite childhood story?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. I think I loved so many of them. And the thing about stories is, and one of the reasons why I love them so much, is that they're like puzzle pieces. And you hear a story sometimes and it sticks with you and you don't really know why. And it's like you've put that puzzle piece in your pocket. And then one day you come across something, you have a conversation with someone, and then you go, that's where it fits. That solves that kind of thing. And the thing is as well, when the older I get, the more I get out of stories that I sort of dismissed before, that I didn't think about before. Snow White, for example, right? Now, a lot of those old stories and those kind of like grim fairy tale things, you're like, oh, it's a warning against this and that, or, or they're really sexist and it's really oppressive and all that kind of thing. The thing is with Snow White, right? I was thinking about this like a few months ago, and it is a warning, but it could also be interpreted as a warning to older women as well. So you've got like this witch, and she's very jealous of this young beautiful woman because she has spent her entire life focused only on her own reflection. She's worked hard, she's got her castle, she's used to get her castle, and now she feels threatened for this because she's obsessed with her looks, right? And then you've got this young girl, beautiful, and she's being told that if she keeps remaining beautiful, if she's demure, if she focuses on her looks, then she'll get the prince and she'll get the castle. So it's this cyclical thing. That's the thing about stories, is that they have different messages in them, and I think sometimes you pick up on different ones at different times in your life, or you hear the stories when you need to hear them. The other one is, the other day someone was saying that they didn't like changeling stories, right? And a changeling story in Scottish folklore is when a woman feels that a child is not her own, it's been replaced by a fairy, and so she does all sorts of things to get rid of it. And on the surface, with modern eyes, we can interpret that as being, the baby isn't perfect, or it has a problem, or there's something wrong. It's not as everybody else is. But having had a child, and having spoken to so many different mothers, I can now see it's actually a really good warning story about things like postnatal depression, new mother mental blocks and problems, and exhaustion and sleep deprivation. In all those stories, there's always somebody from the community who comes in and gives that woman a break. She goes off, quite often she goes off to work in the fields and do lots of chores. It's not the best. Probably just needs a nap. But, she comes back and it's her child again. So she's reconnected. So that story tells you that, as a person in the community, if you see a new mother, offer her support. And if you are a new mother, ask for help, So I think I don't have a favorite story because there's so much in them. There's just layers and layers of knowledge and wisdom and medicine in them. And we can only tap into them, when we need them, I think. And so I can't think of a favorite one. I like those stories where you have the knowledge and you pick out the things that you need from them. I think that's, yeah.
Absolutely. So
sorry.
It did. And again, this goes back to why you're the perfect person to bring in February Fables to talk about these things, right? That's going to lead into the next question about mythical creatures, because you do an amazing video and storytelling of mythical creatures. I think I've probably watched your video probably 50 times on mythical creatures on your YouTube. Because I'm absolutely fascinated with these creatures. So like stories of the Selkies and Kelpies, a lot of the stories, my understanding is dragons as a literature. So my world is more literature. So my linear thread within cultures, the reason I love literature is because it is a way for us to connect and communicate and tell stories and bring people together, right? The one creature that seems to survive in almost every single culture is the dragon. It's prolific throughout world culture. The difference is what it does and its powers and its stories. What I love is you have the video with the dragon, but then there's also, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's the one that lives in the caves that has poison, and it starts with a B, I believe.
Was it the Behar? Is it that one?
Yes. and like these creatures, yes. And your video is so creepy for that, by the way. I love it, and it creeps me out. Like I said, I've watched this so many times. I'm like, the dragon, it starts and it's breathing fire. I'm like, that's totally awesome. And then it leads into all of the other creatures. Of course, it has the unicorn in it, which just makes me absolutely super happy. And then to find out it is the national animal of Scotland, I was like, how cool is that? Like I belong. I need to come visit Scotland. Like it's definitely, like, the signs are all there. I have to come visit and hang out and tell and listen to your stories and learn how to sing a walking song for sure.
I would teach you that, definitely. Come.
I would love it. So my question to you is, do you have a favorite mythical creature?
Ooh. I love dragons. They are amazing, and we've got some fantastic dragon stories. We really do. So that's like one. But then the other one, and it's really close, is a Glashtig. And a Glashtig, she's like part sort of deer or demon. She's got kind of like deer legs, and she's like, horns, and like a really creepy kind of fawn-like creature. And she can either be really vengeful, and actually normally she is, except if you're an animal, or she can be really helpful. She's just so fickle.
Do you leave milk out for her?
I feed the birds which are associated with her, and which there are a huge amount now in my garden. So make my offerings.
That's awesome. I love it. So I don't know if I told you this, but so in addition to loving Scotland and Scottish history and magical creatures, mythical creatures, and the symbols and all of that, I was actually born on Beltane. And I don't know if I'm saying that wrong. Beltane, May Day.
Yeah, no, Beltane, that's good. Yeah. Amazing. So,
again, like there's this draw.
You would love like the celebrations as well in Edinburgh every year. You would love them. They're incredible. Like they take like almost an entire year, I think, to plan. You would love it. You need to come visit. Honestly.
I do. It's honestly, so I didn't make it to Scotland. I made it to Ireland. For some reason at 14 I was just drawn to Ireland and Celtic culture, folklore, and the stories. And so at 14, it kind of, that was the first, and it was probably because I just associated Irish Beltane with, like my family, even though I'm not Irish, I'm not Scottish, I'm fighting, and in my heart I believe I am. I'm definitely from your islands. I don't know why, but I think I am. So that's why I cover myself with the tattoo. This is my question to you. I have tattoos of a thistle and the triskelion. So if you were to have a tattoo, what would you have and where?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because they are powerful symbols.
They are. I actually have no tattoos whatsoever, which I think is really unusual actually for this like day and age, because everybody has a tattoo.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's the problem, right? Because as an artist and as a storyteller, I'm interested in so many different things. I could never ever. There was a stage in my life when I really wanted to tattoo, but I could not pick anything. And like, I remember somebody telling me, oh, if you get like a drawing and you draw something and you put it up in your wall and you get used to, if you're happy with it being there for a certain amount of time, then you should definitely get a tattoo. But I wasn't. Like I was changing it like every week. So I just thought, actually, maybe I should draw one with biro, and then that's fine. If I had to get one, I'd probably get the triskel, because it's it's an ancient symbol. It's amazing, and that one.
Awesome.
Whereabouts? Probably an atom, something that doesn't stretch too much.
Right. It's funny to say that, because I'm covered with I shouldn't say covered. I have several tattoos, and they're all different cultures and ideas and powerful symbols from like different things, because they were different phases of my life that it spoke to me at this particular. I literally can look at each one and go, oh, I was 18 when I got that one. I was 32 when I got that one. So they were all like stages of my life. And like the one for Ireland with my triskel, that one was, I was getting ready. I had just finished undergrad and I was getting ready to go to grad school. And so my understanding is I was told the symbol represents the past, the present, and the future. And so to me, that trip to Ireland was very significant, because I had spent so many years in school, 8 years in school, and I only had 2 more years left to go. And so it was very powerful. And so to go to Ireland and to have that tattoo. So again, it reminds me of where I was in my life. So then grad school, I went to Thailand. So I got a Buddhist symbol tattooed. So, I mean, I am a walking contradiction of tattoos, which is completely fine.
I think it's great, because you're your own like story map.
Exactly.
I think they're beautiful, and
they are.
I have so many friends, and they're covered in them, and they're walking works of art, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just never make my mind up. That was my problem.
You can be like Ray Bradbury's The Illustrated Man and just be covered with them, and each one is its own story. So I also have a thistle. I wanted to, can you please confirm or deny? How about this? I have heard several different stories about how the thistle became Scotland's national symbol. Mm-hmm. Is it true that you know what? How about this? Why don't I shut the hell up and you tell me the story? Why am I telling the story here? This is your national symbol. How did it become the national symbol? If you would like to share that story with us.
Well, there's a story of I think it's Hakon, who was invading Scotland, Scandinavian invaders. Yes. The Scottish army, as it was, or not really Scotland then, but like the Caledonian army, had laid out a couple of like spiky thistles and plants around their camp, and then when the invading army trod on them, let out a yell, and then that was the signal, and then the Scottish army won and defeated them. Happy days. So that's the story. However, and this kind of brings us back to the caltrops. So a friend of mine, Natty Fleck, made me a couple of caltrops, which are made of iron. They're like 4 iron spikes, and no matter how you cast them on the ground, one spike will jut up, and your invading army will trod upon them, or their horses will, and let out a yell. and alert everybody what's happening, but also you'll lame them essentially, so kind of knock them out. Now these things have been in use since like 331 BC. As far as we know, there might even be earlier. That's the earliest we can kind of get them back to. And while I was researching them, because I travel around and I show these objects and I tell stories about them, while I was researching the caltrops, I discovered that there are several different names for them, and some of those names were used in medieval times and prior to that as well, like early medieval, to describe thistles. So we've been using them since 331 BC. If you were going to lay out a trap for an invading army, would you use thistles, or would you use the joking word thistles, which are actually the iron caltrops? So I don't know. There's like I was talking to somebody about it, and there's a plant as well that's called caltrops. So I think something has somewhere along the way has got lost in translation. However, I love the story about the guy treading on a thistle. I think it's very romantic and beautiful. So I don't want to tread on that story. So quick. But I do think that it's yeah. I do think it's a personally.
When I saw your caltrop, I was like, wait a minute. I thought the story was the thistle, that, that's why it became the national symbol. So the fact that you were able to bring it all together and kind of make sense out of it. And sometimes we also have a tendency, and this is, as storytellers, this is what we love, we can romanticize things, right? That's the beauty of storytelling. We can make the history sound so pretty. Because caltrops are freaking, those are terrifying. A thistle is much prettier.
Oh yeah. And it's also very romantic, they grow wild everywhere, and there's a lot of like different folklore about different plants in Scotland. So I think, I love the story, and I wouldn't change our national symbol. I wouldn't change it to a caltrop, which is quite spiky, it just looks like an X. I'm happy to want to keep that thistle. Happy to perpetuate that story.
There's absolutely no plan to change the national symbol or the national animal. We'll keep it as the thistle and the unicorn. 100%.
Yep. All spiky things.
All spiky things. That's awesome. Horns, my hair. So I'm going to ask you, two last questions about the book and history about the book. And then I do want to talk about a little bit more about your YouTube channel. And then I do actually have one final question. So this is not the final question. So two last questions about the book. Can you tell the listeners about the ghost wall?
So the ghost wall, which is one of the illustrations in the book, there are written accounts by like Romans of being greeted by our native Armenian Caledonians, or the Welsh as well, being greeted by just a line of screaming women, cursing and throwing stones, and then behind them a line of druids like casting spells and doing more cursing and things, and then behind them like the Caledonian army. Now the folk belief and the folk tradition about that is that when you go into battle, you are representing your fathers and your fathers and your fathers and your fathers and your fathers. And even in Culloden, for example, everyone rushed into battle. The Scottish rushed into battle shouting, I am son of, son of, son of, son of, son of. So we wanted to represent that, that ancestry, the fact that, the invaders weren't just meeting a people, they were meeting an entire history, like everybody. And so how is the best dramatic way to do that? So we've got like a druid, and he's standing in a wee circle of magic mushrooms, and he's casting spells. And then behind him, Caledonian army. And then above them, we have just this huge wall of like warrior skeletons. because those are the old warriors. So you have the power of all this ancestral stuff coming with you as you're going into battle. And it's sort of threaded through the book, all these ideas from, like, Gaelic tradition and Scottish folk tradition, the kind of animism part of it, and also the ancestral connections. So I really wanted to kind of make sure that was on display in the illustration of that, because it's some of the description, staying true to the 18th century version of it, is very, very it's poetic, and it can be quite sort of intense and dense. So I wanted to try and make that a wee bit more accessible by kind of showing it, and I explain after every chapter, what just happened, kind of a summary of what just happened. But I also wanted, to have this illustrative representation, so you kind of have an image of that as well.
Absolutely. And I also had to look this up because I didn't know. I had never even heard of it. And I apologize if I pronounce it incorrectly. Carnix?
Oh yeah, Carnix, yeah.
So I have the Carnix Roar, and so I went and looked it up, and John Kenny has amazing videos of him playing. Yeah. And I had never seen it before or heard of that instrument. And so I literally had the ghost wall in my head while I was listening to that. I had goosebumps on my arm. I was like, holy crap. I was like, this is like the most immersive storytelling. And again, I don't even have the book in front of me. All I've done is, listen to your stories and I did some research on you, and I was just like, oh, holy crap. You literally, and this is exactly, I think you actually said these words on Seamus McPherson's video. This is what I love about you. You bring ancient legends to a modern world. Like, that's what you do. And like, I was like, that is like the best description of what you do and how you do them when you tell your stories with your 60-second stories. And so this leads to your YouTube. The Samhain with I'm gonna slaughter the really scary one on Samhain. Gaelic?
Which one?
The really scary story on Halloween, Samhain.
Is it Knuckleavi? Is it that one?
No, but Knuckleavi. Okay, so literally, here's your these things terrify me, and I love stories. These things terrify me. Your Knuckleavi, your Boobry, and your Fachan. Is that how you say it?
Oh, Fachan.
Fachan. Yeah. Your story. I literally have your stories scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, they're scary stories. Yeah, they're good ones.
I was like, basically, she's like,
is she the vampire? Is she the vampiric one, or is she?
He was it the midwife? No, I'm confusing the fairy. So I have the Fairy Queen of Erin. I just listened to that just before I talked with you, so I might be confusing. No, there was the Halloween one, the Samhain one, the Gaelic. Is that it? Yeah. I apologize.
Music. Yeah.
We got it though.
Yeah. Oh, she's amazing. That is one of the most stories. That's
I have
just
goosebumps again. Amazing stories. You don't scare your children with these stories though, do you?
Well, my son does know about the Gaelic, yeah. But she's this amazing, this like giantess, and it created all the different hills and the hammer, and there's so many amazing stories. She's one of my favorites.
Gaelic, right? Can you say it again, please?
Gaelic.
Okay. So this is what I love about the storytelling and the creatures and the stories that you share. You have some truly beautiful, magnificent stories. And then there are also these terrifying, scary ass stories. And it's so cool to I'm glad that you don't have, you weave them. You have the one about the bartender, the female bartender. So you bring some levity to some of these stories, so they're not all of these really scary, freaky creatures. Like the Knuckleavy, like when I heard you do the Knuckleavy, I was like, again, holy shit, this thing is scary.
Or horrifying. Yeah, yeah.
Good
No,
Lord.
or the worst one. Yeah. I like telling true stories. Like the female, there's a few female ones generally associated with drink and illegal doings. Um, there's one. There's so many bootleggers we've got. Like but they're real stories. They're real people. But because a lot of those stories, they're about working class people, or they were about people who were doing illegal things. We don't really get to hear about them. And sometimes when I'm doing events at schools or museums or pubs, people ask me for a true story as well. Well, that's and a true story. And so, well, that's great. We've got some amazing characters. I was just meeting up with a couple of people today, and I was learning some stories about poachers today, like true stories about true poachers, which is fantastic, and some female poachers as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're the characters, because the thing is that, like, Scottish identity, who we are as a people, we do have this really kind of mix of because of the weather, because of the environment that we live in, and we have a very kind of like I don't know, gruff sometimes, I think, appearance, or the way our humor is really dark, and our stories can be really, really dark. But at the same time, we have this kind of like, oh, well, I'm going to hell. Do you want anything? Kind of like attitude about it. So it really helps to mix that up as well, because you think, and the other thing about it is, like, a lot of our stories, they're like the folklore stories, they are a community memory bank, that we've added layers to and layers to and layers to. And so it's all come from something. So there's some kind of history in there. So it's weaving them all together is really, it's fun.
Absolutely. And like I said, I can't get enough of your YouTube. So like I said, if you see a spike in your views, it's probably all me just hitting it on repeat.
Oh, I need to upload more. Because I'm always traveling and talking, and yeah, I need to get better at uploading stuff onto social medias, and YouTube especially, because it's we neglected YouTube at the moment, Instagram.
I totally get it. Every one of these podcast episodes, because I video record it, same thing. So I should have these on YouTube as well. I don't. So I'm the worst. So don't even like. That's literally, you can't see, but I have my little task of things that I need to do, and literally it's upload YouTubes.
I have the same.
Upload. It's literally staring at me in red letters right there, and I'm like, I'll get to that.
Yeah, totally. It's like like every couple of months or something, I upload like 20 in one go, which is probably not bad because they're actually all quite short, so you can just kind of binge them.
Absolutely, I love it. So on that note, I wanted to ask you, how many cups of coffee in a day do you drink, and what is your go-to coffee drink?
Ooh, I have one espresso strength mug of coffee. Because I get up, because I have a wee one, I tend to be up at, like, sometimes the worst days at 4 a.m., sometimes 5 a.m. and stuff. So I take that, like, pint of espresso in the morning, and then I'm kind of like, "Phew, that's me for the rest of the day," until I gradually come down off that caffeine by about 10, and then I'm just unconscious. So on a I don't know, I would say probably 1 or 2 cups of coffee, but it is like a normal person's like 5 probably. Like every time my dad comes over, he waters my coffee down, and so that's fine. I don't feel bad about it. It's okay. It would, like, it would resuscitate.
Totally. There's nothing worse. Like weak coffee, you can't do anything to weak coffee. But if it's too strong, all you have to do is like add. I used to do the same thing. I would go to my parents' house. I would sometimes I would ask my parents. I'd be like, "Oh, I drank the last of the cup or last of the pot. Can I go ahead and make a new pot? How many scoops do you?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I put about 15, 16 scoops of coffee into the filter." And I was like, "Good Lord." It's like, why
Wow.
don't you just dump the whole bag in? I was like, I'll just be watering this down a little bit. And I love coffee. Don't get me wrong. I love coffee. But I'm like, man, you guys, like, it's like theirs was, I had to water down my parents' coffee. So I get it. I get
Wow.
it.
I would have to put in your parents' coffee.
It was potent. That was the word. Like, I literally would have one word to describe it. Potent. That's how they liked it. They're like, 15 scoops. Yeah. Okay. It's like,
Amazing.
I've heard, the spoon is going to melt when I dip it in there to add my little cream and sugar. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Eileen, this has been so much fun, and I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I am so happy to actually finally hear you, speak with you, and learn your history, and for you to share your world with us. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's been so lovely to speak to you and meet you in person.
So I'm going to ask two things, if that's okay, before we get to the tagline and closing out the show. What is a common Gaelic swear word?
Pochmahog is kiss my ass. That's probably the most widely used one.
Okay, see if I say it right. Pochmahog?
Yeah, Pokemon. Yeah.
We're saying that all the time now. I love it. That's awesome. If you hear me saying it, it's literally, I'm gonna record it and I'm just gonna be like, and so I learned something new today. Check it out.
Yeah, I can send you others because on the very bottom of my Instagram, when I was very bored at the start of lockdown, I put together quite a few Gaelic swears.
Oh, consider it done. I'm going to be sharing those.
Yeah, please do.
It's going to be awesome. Oh, it's done. I'm going to practice that. So we keep saying we want to learn a new language, so Gaelic it is.
Oh, well, I've got as well, I put together a free PDF. It's on Last Wolf Outdoors. It's on their site. And at the back, there's an entire page of Gaelic swear words. But the rest of it is all, everyday phrases, and it's got phonetic, so you can help pronounce it.
Yeah.
All the phrases. So yeah, I can send you the link to that if anybody, and you can share it as well. Like if anybody wants to, it's there, it's free. Learn to swear in many languages.
That's awesome. I'm learn to swear with Eileen Budd.
Super.
That's awesome. So now I don't know if you'll be able to say it in both English and Gaelic, but my tagline is "Go forth and be magical." So if you would be able to say "Go forth and be magical," obviously in English, and then if there's a way you could say it in Gaelic, that would be really cool. But if not, it's totally cool. Standard English is totally fine.
Okay, I'll probably stick with the English, or yeah, if that's okay.
Yes,
but I'll have to think about it. It's the grammar is always a bit different. So if that's okay, is that all right?
Totally okay.
Go forth, be magical.